Today, we're going to do a little bit of a different format. Asked a lot of questions. And about Abraham, we made a posting. And here I have questions about his early life from Jeff Brown. A lot of you are here, Rose, Sam Beckham. Here's about when he left everything behind. Here's a whole bunch of questions that you gave us. Was leaving behind an act of faith? Did you feel safe in your tent? How did God lead you on your journey? Here's the battles of the kings, the 5 kings versus the 4 kings. Here's the covenants, the covenant of circumcision and the covenant of the parts. Were you in a deep sleep? Did you see it in a dream? Were you awake? How old were you when Isaac was born? Who were the 3 strangers? Here's about Hagar and Ishmael. You wanted to know a lot about that. Why did they get sent away? Why did Avraham listen to Sarah and get married in the first place? The binding of Isaac. Here, general questions and about prophecy. So when Shraga and I were going over this list of questions, we said, wow, this is probably a full semester course here of 1-hour sessions, maybe 13, 14 sessions. So it was kind of obvious we're not going to get through all of that today. But what I will do is I'm going to send you sources for a lot of this material. And the other thing, what we're going to highlight 3 things today. One is early life and focusing on the Tower of Babel. You can all see this chart. Actually, I did this chart with another friend. I'm going to bring him on one time, Rabbi Pinchas Winston. He's an expert on Jewish history and on the final days and the final redemption. So we did this chart years and years ago. It was a poster. Here you can see Adam and the years Adam lived. Overlapping is Seth, his son. Here's Methuselah. Here's Noach. Here's Shem. Here's Ever. Here's Avraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And lo and behold, look at this. If you look at this chart, here's where Avraham is born. Noach is still alive. Shem is still alive. Ever is still alive. They all overlap. So we want to see, what did he know? What was his experience with them? So we're going to focus particularly here. There's the Tower of Babel, which occurred when they were all alive. So how that affected Avraham and his mission. We're going to focus on that. We're going to focus on the whole Hagar and Ishmael episode. That's very troubling for people. And the third thing we're going to focus on most particularly is going to be the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, and the lessons learned there. Because what we're trying to establish, the main question was, well, who is Avraham? Avraham's the father of the Jewish people. But on the other hand, no, he is the father of Ishmael also, which is the father of Islam, right? The Islamic nations come from Ishmael. And Christianity comes from Yaakov and Esav. So was he the first monotheist? That's going to be a question, because we know Adam was a monotheist. Who else was he going to believe in? He believed in God, right? So Noach was a monotheist. But we say Avraham was the founder of monotheism. So that's kind of confusing. Did Avraham come up with it on his own? What happened at the Tower of Babel that affected him? And finally, we're going to focus in particular today on the binding of Isaac, because that episode, that final test, was really foundational in who the Jewish people were going to become. All right. We wanted to try to give you the answers to your questions, these questions in how Avraham would have said it. How would Avraham would have said it, right? Because we can give you all the quotes and everything.
Ask me the question.
So, Avraham, what was it like?
I want to say welcome to my tent. It's always exciting to have people here. Everyone is welcome. Every single human being is welcome. I had the experience of bowing down to Arab men that were passing by, and it was so in the middle of what I was doing during that incident was actually talking to God, because it was the third day after my Brit Milah, and God had come, believe it or not, to pay a call, a visit to the sick, because I was from the circumcision that I did at age 99. So this is by the way, I believe in the Bible will eventually write down, but it's chapter 18 of Genesis. You can note it. Middle of this communion with the Almighty, with the transcendent. I mean, I was like, it was unbelievable. I don't know if we're gonna have time to talk about it now, but it's just really like a clear vision. I mean, God had come to me. He's the one who kind of put me through the circumcision. But what I wanted to mention here in that context is 3 strangers passed, and I jumped up to welcome them into the tent. Now they were actually, and it's a little tricky, you know, but my approach is that every human being is created in the image of God and gives that person an infinite value. And that's all I needed to know to welcome anyone into my tent. So I'm happy to see you all here today. If you need anything, we have the black coffee, and we have freshly baked rolls my daughter made today. I guess Abraham didn't know. Really, my daughter made today these freshly baked rolls, really, really delicious, with gas oil, believe it or not. And it was really, really fantastic. So she should share the recipe with you. It was really unbelievable. Okay, that's an aside, but that's what we have here, and everyone's welcome. So Rabbi Shmuel, I think you had a question maybe that people wanted to know something about what I've been through in my lifetime.
Yeah, so the idea was, so you grew up in a pagan household, idol worshippers all around you. Did you not know anything about God, the infinite being, the creator? Like you didn't hear from any of your relatives? Noah had a son.
Yeah, there's a yeshiva of Shem V'Aver. It was the yeshiva of Shem V'Aver. These were the people who had the tradition, but it was Noah's yeshiva. So I went there, you know, I got a lot of insight. The only reason, or just give me a half a second here, but I want to backtrack to how I even got to the yeshiva. That we need to talk about. But I just was saying, I had to ask myself, like, what happened in the great flood that Noah was unable to save one individual, was not able to as we say in do tshuva. Tshuva is return to the place of connection with the Almighty. So why is it that he had, do you know how long it was from the time that Noah got the land to build the ark until the flood came?
How many years?
100 a whole lifetime. And he so that's what I said is, that's, I don't know, you know, I don't want to be like that. That's what I said. So I decided that that's what us, that he wants us to share. I mean, if we love him, we'll share. So I took that out of a personal mission, and what I wanted to say is that that's how I kind of am known as the first monotheist, because of the commitment to bringing that peace and love to the entire world. If we're not doing that, then I don't believe we're doing that's my opinion. And I think that might have been, you know, a little bit of there's a prophets in Isaiah. I don't have it in front of me, and I want to say 7, but I don't have it in front of me right now. 7 anyway. So it refers to the flood as the waters of Noah.
Noach, right?
And there is a bit of a attachment of Noah's name to that tragedy. Is it the flu? You attach a name to a derogatory event, to a negative, a challenging, a difficult, a painful event, right? Very painful event, and it's attached. So it's a little bit of a, but anyway. So that be that as it may. But I understood that he was very welcoming, very knowledgeable, like really steeped in tradition. I mean, he got it firsthand over there. If you look back at your chart, there was only, I believe Noah was born 20 years after. He was fantastic. He was a tzaddik. I mean, he was a righteous person. I mean, it was like, he was really, I mean, he was the best in his generation. He was the best human alive at that time. That's basically Noah. Please.
But again, you grew up in Terach's house. Terach had cut himself off from the tradition, or at least if he was aware of it, he didn't act on it. And that's what you're saying. Key monotheism is not just an idea, it's a way of life. So you're saying your father never transferred that to you. And if he didn't transfer that to you and you were surrounded by idols and idol worshipers, then how did you connect with the idea of one God?
So it's just a word on my father that he's a good man, and he wasn't an evil man, but that was what was going on at the time. It was just this like guy. I mean, I don't know if you would. Well, people can. It was a popularity kind of capitalist-driven, egotistical, almost narcissistic society. I grew up in the era of the Tower of Babel. That was my Vietnam, or that was my 9/11. Excuse me, it was the Tower of Babel, or the current double-headed lockdown that we're going through. These are all, So for me, it was, and when these things happen. I went out of Abraham character for a second. We were talking about modern events, but these are events that shake the world. So for me, my world-shaking event was and like, why did this catastrophe happen? I mean, this is more than the Twin Towers. This was big stuff. So we basically happened was, if you have the verses in front of you, it's.
I'm ready.
Do the whole thing. Go for it.
The whole world was speaking one language. Same words. They were united in their words. They were migrating from the east. They found a valley in the land of Shinar. And they dwelled there. V'yomru ish el rehu, and each person spoke to his friend. Hava nil benadavanim. Come, let's make bricks. V'nisrifa, the srifa. Right? We're gonna put them in the oven, burn them so that they'll be very hard. V'dihi lehem halevanat le'aven. The bricks will turn to stone, as it were. V'achamar haya lehem lechomer. And they'll have the mortar. And now the fourth verse says, "Vayamru hava." Okay, let's go. Nivne lanu ir. Let's build for ourselves a city, umigdal, and a tower. Verosho b'shamayim, and the head of the tower will be in the heavens or in the sky. V'naseh lanu shem, and we'll make for ourselves a name. Pen nafutz al pnei kol aretz, lest we be scattered on the face of all of the earth. Whoa. Unless they build the tower, make a name for themselves, they're going to be scattered all over the world. What's up with that? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. In verse 2, we see that they came to the valley in the land of Shinar. And why typically there? What happens immediately after? Was the first thing they did? Let us mold. Right? And then we're going to use that as the raw material. Tower going to reach the sky, and it will make ourselves a name. So this is what we need to understand. that they moved away from, actually it says, I left out a couple words in verse 2, people migrated from the east. So what's the east? If you look in Genesis 2:8, you see, I don't know if you guys want to flip there real quick, just to, just 2:8, Genesis, God planted a garden Eden to the east. So it's the same place, east. It's referred to here. Right? You guys got this? The Garden of Eden was in this place called East. Go back to our verse. People migrated from the east. They left the east. They left that behind in that vision. And they went to a place called Shinar. They went to a place called Shinar is because that was the Silicon Valley high-tech capital. And do you know what the high-tech back then was?
Bricks.
It was building bricks. So they said it was, the steel that enabled them to build a very, very high structure. Obviously with other architectural techniques, but they said let's make these bricks and we're going to build a tower, okay? And they moved away from the east. They moved away from the vision, and they came to a place. They thought they had the ability to, challenge nature, to control nature, essentially, to control everything. It was all about control. This was a godless society. This was a society that was run by Nimrod, who was a narcissist, and he tried to kill me. I mean, he couldn't handle the fact. It's like the Pharaoh can't handle the fact that that there's something bigger than them. They just want to be the most powerful person, the most powerful force in the universe. So this is against, when I tried to tell people about God, and they were like, there was big pushback. I mean, this was like a battle for the war, battle for human consciousness. I mean, and Pharaoh and others were, have to be willing to destroy their own society, willing to be destroyed greatly. These are the dictators. They're willing to destroy in order to preserve their own, rather than admit that, that they've been. Right. So if you're a huge narcissist and you want to be the most popular person on the planet, the most powerful person on the planet, and now you've got to contend with God, that's not pleasant. So Nimrod tried to kill me. He threw me in a. Now, thank God I came out without a scratch, but I didn't know the test, by the way. That was trial by fire. Oof, that's scary.
Hey, I just want to interrupt for a second, because I think Please. A lot of the people are watching, saying this is fascinating, but everything you're talking about is not in their Bibles, right? Anybody have anything that he's talking about in their Bible about Nimrod and being thrown into the fire? And they're saying, Rabbi, are you making this stuff up? I mean, right? Anybody got that question? At any rate, a lot what he's sharing with you is what our sages have handed down. The text in the Chumash is very telegraphic, has very fine points, and we've handed down from Sinai, along with the written Torah, the things to fill in the gaps. So what Rabbi Simmons is doing for you right now is he's sharing with you now. When I send you the notes, I'll give you the sources. I'll give you some sources where he's getting this stuff up from. He's just not just role-playing and making up a story right now. Everything that he's saying is founded in text and traditions that handed down from teacher to student to teacher to student to teacher to student for the last 3,300 years. All right, I'm going to stop.
And to the best and the ability to communicate, the answer to the question, what would Abraham say?
Right.
So I've tried to explain this in two different voices, and a kind of a third person voice, and it feels a little weird in first person, it's even weirder in third person. You can't really communicate it in third person because it's anyway. So I'm happy that everyone's having a good time, and yeah, it's all true. It's all tradition, Shmuel. It all comes down to tradition because everybody. I mean, we really don't. You know, we have to rely on that. Let me put it like this. Let's say for the sake, okay, that for the sake of argument, that we're all willing to go back to the Abrahamic tradition. Start there in our conversation about, I don't know, life and the yes God, no God, and I mean that's the great eternal question that every system has had to deal with and does so in their own way, and very tellingly has choice points. Every society has, moments when a decision is going to the society in one direction or another, and these things have, set the tone, set the direction. So what Abraham was going through in the days of the Tower of Babel, so we're going through the same thing today. We are going through the same thing today. And it's just a different form, but it's, I mean, let's imagine just for a moment, take a half a step back, and imagine you just got parachuted into the world today. Been here before. This is what you got. This is what you got. This is what you see. You got this up CNN.com and whatever the snapshot is, or maybe you have to get like the mix, but you got a picture of what's going on. What do you do next? And you're on a mission from God. You're on a mission from God. What does what does He want from us? What's the problem? That's the only question we need to be asking. And the problem, I think, is, I don't know if I'm misunderstand it, but the way I understand the problem is that every human being on the planet, back to square one. How am I, if I parachuted into the planet today, okay, I'm going to change the story a little. Parachuted into the planet today, I'm going back a step. You parachuted in the planet today, you see what you see, and you've got now to move forward in life. You've got to choose a direction, go with something. That's your first step. That's your most primary choice, right? And the choice, as all, is binary. It's binary in the sense of it's binary in the sense that there's no third choice, choice A or choice B, right? It's really like a 1 and a 0. And he probably hasn't told you guys this, but he has an extensive, he's like a genius in being an inventor, and he's a genius in computers. So you'll be able to at least validate is that all computer code is essentially a string of 1s and 0s. It's binary choices. This is the great revelation that we're having in our generation, and a little bit how metaphysics works. Metaphysics, it's all binary choices. There's no third choice. That's how the code is. That's how our lives get put on a trajectory. It starts with the first choice. It's the basic choice that every human being needs to ask at the beginning of his journey, right? We just parachuted in today. Moving forward, what is the first choice? I think Abraham would contend that the first choice is what I God or no God. I mean, that's the first choice. That's going to determine like just about everything. So that's why, that's to me why this discussion that I'm so appreciative for all the nice people that came out is is totally relevant to us today. We are living through story.
Somebody's mute. unmuted. How does Avraham, so he sees a world that's totally corrupt, that's disjointed from God, disassociated from God. And he says, you're right, either the world is created by God, either you're connecting or you're disconnected. And God wants us all to be connected, all of humanity. So he decides, or you decide as Avraham, I got to do something about it. Because whether I'm going to succeed or not, that's my choice. Am I going to do it or am I not going to do it? Even though it looks impossible, that's my purpose in life. Is that what you're saying?
Many things to get clear. The first thing to get clear is, what's my first choice? What's my basic primary choice? Every human being makes this choice. Problem, Shmuel, and I saw that many of our day in the tent had asked about doubt and faith and doubt. The doubt, we create the doubt. The doubt is we create the doubt. The doubt is not in God. God is avada. God is existence. The doubt is only created in our mind. So that's really, and that's why there was Abraham had such an easier time at the Akedah, at the binding of Isaac, which I'm sure we'll get to. Is it was all about, suspending his belief in the face of his, and saying that God's logic must be a higher logic. And that's a humbling thing to say. The reason Abraham could say such a thing with confidence, with conviction, is he had made that first choice in a very clear way and with his life accordingly. And that's all we have to do. Deep breath, everybody. Either, what are we worried about? We're going to lose to the atheists? Is that what we're worried about? That we're going to be proven, wrong or something? I mean, you see, this is what we're living through. We see we see what happens when you take, when you take God out of the picture. What do you expect? What do you expect? What do you expect?
So I want to talk about, so the beginning of his journey, you're saying, is here's a society that's so powerful that can build this tower to the heavens. And that's what he's dealing with. And he's coming up with this idea that goes counter to everything that they stand for. And you're saying that's the beginning of his decision to make that journey? Going against the whole world to bring this message to the world.
It's a revulsion. It's a revulsion from the hypocrisy and from the deception and from all the, power plays, the ego, the narcissist. Can you tolerate? Does anyone here want to live with a world full of narcissists? That's what we're creating, because that's the eventual. That's what I call, it's the win state. The win state of the narcissist is to be the person on the planet. Okay, the wins, you got that? That's the win state of the narcissist. That's what they go choices. Who chooses? This is Pharaoh. This is the zero in in that primal choice. He chooses self.
All right, so let me work through the journey then. So Avraham makes this commitment and decision, which is a reaction to Noach's failure to be able to affect the world, and to see what's going on with the Tower of Babel.
Reaction to the revulsion. Yeah,
right. The Tower of Babel and what the society was all about.
It's a rejection. Shmuel, it's a rejection of all that. It's a rejection of all that. What we are seeing today is anything that's stamped with the zero choice, we should be rejecting, because it's moving the world. And we're this is, if I could, it's the this is the call of the generation.
Okay.
Just like stop, because this is all the world has. This is the only thing that can save the world. It's the only thing that can save the world, in my opinion.
All right.
That's what's going on. And Abraham felt the same way. The whole world, there was this enclave with Noah and his family, just as there was an enclave with Noah and his family centuries earlier with the flood. I mean, that was all Noah and his. That was it. So Abraham took on to the word, to spread the word, and which in our tradition is as taking a vial of perfume. The metaphor is if a person has a vial of perfume, right? Beautiful perfume. Okay, so they guard it well at home. It's very special. And that's it. All right. Said, I'm going to open the vial of perfume, and I'm going to take it to the street. I'm going to take it out there. I'm going to take it out there. That's what makes Abraham the first monotheist. He took the second step after the first step, which is belief. The second step is, what does Hashem want from me now? That's the second question that every human being needs to ask. Right? Because we're here, right? So there was a collusion of clarity of there was a thick fog of pollution. The pollution is also there's pollution in the human in the human condition. We got to root. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. It's unhealthy, and the planet shows it. And the society show it, and the political upheaval and chaos shows it, and and the climate shows it. And these are all just symptoms of of a planet that needs some help. And again, let me just say one last thing. We who believe, right? We who believe, if we ain't gonna do it, who's gonna do it? Because the other guys aren't going to, that's what we're fighting against. But so if we have more clarity ourselves, we can apply that to moving forward and traverse a very bad path that the world, it seems to have. That's all.
Okay, so what I want to do right now for a few minutes is I want to take that starting point, walk us through Avraham's journey. I'll summarize that, touch some high points, and then text. I brought up some of the verses here. So because Avraham chose to take the responsibility to actively be the monotheist, he wasn't the first monotheist, meaning in the sense of knowing that there's a God. He's the first one to actively be proactive about bringing God's message to the world. And because he chose to do that, God said, okay, you're my agent. You're the one that can be the one that's going to do that. Up until that point in history, one individual could serve as a role model and change the world. And Noah had the opportunity to do that because they were living in tribal societies. Once we got society developed, so as you were saying, Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Bavel, showed that they had complex civilizations had already developed. Once you have a complex civilization, you have complex societal problems, and one person can't set the example for an entire civilization or society or a nation. So at that point, God wants to have a nation be set up that could serve as the example for the rest of the nations, as opposed to an individual setting an example for individuals. And God says, okay, I'm going to pick Avraham, and he's going to build a nation. And to build a nation, you need a land, you need the language, you're going to need a history, but you need a society that's doing what everybody else is doing, but at a higher plane, at a higher spiritual plane. So here we have in Genesis 12, God says to Avram, in a dream, in a vision, in a prophecy, Lech lecha martzecha umimoletecha umibeit avicha. I want you to leave from your land, meaning the physical place where you were born, the country, mimolatcha, your birthplace, mibeit avicha, from your father's house. You have to leave everything behind. You have to leave your whole culture behind, because you're going to create a whole new culture. You're going to have your own house with your own family values in a neighborhood, a cultural society with the cultural values in a nation state. So he has to leave everything behind. And I'm going to make of him a great nation. He'll give him a bracha. He will give them, what does he mean? I will bless you. I will bless you. When you choose to do this spiritual job, you're going to need physical tools. And in Torah, when we say bless, to give a blessing, it means a physical blessing in the physical world. So he's going to give him all of the tools that he needs in order to accomplish his goal, and in order to be able to attract people to serve as a role model. We don't want to force anybody. God did not force humanity to be monotheists. We saw that happen in the first 10 generations and the next generations. He wants us to have free choice. So whoever's going to be his agent is not there to force monotheism on anybody. He has to be there to set an example. In order to set an example, people have to hear about him. So God says, don't worry. I'm going to give you all the physical tools you need, and I'm going to make you famous so that people will have heard about you. If you take a look at the land of Israel and the nation of Israel today, where you don't even find this on most maps, especially Arab maps, but what you will find is you'll find us in the headlines of every single newspaper around the world. God will make our name great, and we will be a blessing, meaning Avraham's nation that he's building will be a blessing, and he'll bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you, and all of the families there shall be blessed through you. Okay, so that's the beginning of his journey. And then Avraham arrives in the land, and God, once he gets into the land, establishes his covenant with him to establish this nation. And God says he will protect him. And then it came to him in a vision. As a prophet, he saw it in a vision. We've said last session, Moshe always heard it in word for word. And he said, all right, look out in the sky. I'm going to make you numerous. And he says, how do I know that I'm going to possess the land? He says, your children are going to go and inherit. He says, how do I know? Did he doubt God? No, he didn't doubt God. What we understood when we talked about the Exodus is that he was concerned about the generations to come, our generation today. How would we merit the land? And he said, you have to go through this experience of Egypt, and you'll come out after 400 years from the time he gives birth to Yitzchak, and the covenant is made. And he says the land is going to be given to us from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river of the Euphrates. Today we don't have those borders from the Nile until the Euphrates, but that is what is called the Promised Land. Now, just very quickly, we're going to skip over this because we want to get to the Akedah. In order to do that, he needs to have children. Avraham needs to have children. And at this point, his wife's been barren. They're real old. And they come into the land. They're here for 10 years. People ask that question. Why did she give her servant Hagar to him? And the answer is she was barren before. We have a principle in Torah that if you change where you are, it changes your providence. It changes your mazal. So when they come into the land of Israel is not like other lands, and there's a different providence here. And perhaps the new providence would change the fact that she was barren. Maybe she'll get pregnant after 10 years. She still doesn't have a child in the land. Now, in Judaism, a man has an obligation to be fruitful and multiply. A woman doesn't. It's her choice, because God will never give us a commandment that will put us in mortal danger, and childbirth is dangerous. So a woman has to choose to do it. For a man to have a child, it's not a potentially lethal act for himself. So he has an obligation to have children. If he's married, he hasn't had children. Technically, according to the law, he could divorce his wife, or at least take a second wife after 10 years of his first wife being barren. So she understands this, but she understands the principle. She's bought into the job as well. So what Sarah says, listen, Who am I to say I have to be the one to be the physical mother? My job, like my husband's, is to be the spiritual leaders, to create spiritual children. Fact, it's my physical child, doesn't matter. I'll be a surrogate mother. Here's Hagar. She was a princess in Egypt. That's our tradition tells us that. She chose to go with Avraham, so she respected what they were doing. She said, better to be a servant to Avraham than a princess in Egypt. It's a more meaningful thing to do. So she was with the program. So Sarah says, all right, you know what? I can't have children. Let Avraham have children with her. And she'll have a child, and I'll raise him as if he's my own. I'll be the spiritual mother, the adopting mother, and she'll just bear the child. That was her plan. It didn't work out that way because Avraham, being the kind of person that he is, instead of just having the maidservant and having a child with the maidservant, he elevated her status to a full wife, and she became a full wife. And when she gave birth to Ishmael, she said, wow, within 9 months, I had this child. Her whole lifetime, she didn't have it. Maybe she's just pretending to be righteous on the outside. Maybe she's not really so righteous. And that's why we see Hagar mocking, she was lowered in her esteem, meaning Hagar looked more lowly at her because of that. She had the child. She was elevated to the status of a wife. And Sarah gets upset because she says, Avraham, it's your fault, because when God told him he was going to inherit the land, he says, how am I going to inherit the land? I'm childless. He didn't say we are childless. He didn't include Sarah, and she was upset with him, and she blamed him. Maybe that's why she couldn't have a child, because Avraham didn't include her in the request from God to have children. Anyways, long story short, we can come back and talk about it another time. She gets sent away. Ishmael gets sent away, and eventually Isaac is born, and the promise is going to be fulfilled through Isaac, who's born to Sarah. But then God comes along, Shraga, and says, kill him. How did you feel about that? Long last, Sarah has the baby. Now I want you to take him, and I want you to offer him up as a sacrifice.
Means Rabbi Shmuel.
Here we go. Chapter 22.
Verse 2. Okay, can I just, go ahead. Do you want to read it in the Hebrew and then just the...
Verse 2?
Verse 3 first. We need including the first three. We need the...
Okay. So, Vayomer kachna bincha, God says to Avraham, take your son, et yichidcha, your only one, to exclude him from Ishmael, asher ahavta, that you have loved, et Yitzchak, he says it explicitly so he's not confused with Ishmael, ulech lecha, and go for yourself, el eretz haMoriah, to go to the land of Moriah. And we learned last time that that's the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Va'aleo sham le'olah, and elevate him there for an elevating offering. Al echad ha'arim, on one of the mountains, asher omar elecha, that I will tell you. Meaning he's telling him again, go somewhere and he doesn't know where it is. Then it says, v'yashkem Avraham ba'boker. Avraham gets up early in the morning, v'yachbosh et chamaro, and he saddled his donkey. V'yikach et shnei ne'arav ito, and he took his two youths with him. Ve'et Yitzchak, and Yitzchak, two youths with him, and Yitzchak, his son. V'baka atzei olah, and he chopped some wood for the fire that he's going to do the offering. V'yakam, v'yalech, he got up and he went to the place that God said to him to go to. Okay. You're on.
Okay. Yeah. So you asked if I had fear and doubt. So, the answer is not actually, but that doesn't mean it was easy. But that was was the test essentially, is not having any fear or doubt, just saying, okay, because, this is the whole, this really gets to the root of the battle. It's easier to do God's will when it makes sense to us as well. What I call the tangible, observable effect, that life is better. I'm happier. I'm just happier. So that's good. In the Jewish tradition, Shabbat and the holidays are associated with a special kind of joy, which is just really feeling good about it, and grateful. And so when but it's hard when it goes against what we would logically say, because that's where we then need to give up our, that's the leap of, you could call it the leap of faith, but it's a short leap, because we speak about it in terms of a leap from 49 to 50. The 49 days that we count the Omer, between Pesach and Shavuot, those 7 weeks times 7 is 49 days that we count the Omer. And we didn't get to Mount Sinai, and we didn't get to Shavuot, right? We only counted 49, and then we couldn't go. And God needs to, we can understand, and we can come close to God, right? Close to God. Maybe I don't understand these things too well, but we can, let's say, to the 49th level, but the 50th level that's God's domain. Moses experienced the same thing, because he reached the 49th. This is the incident when God puts Moshe in the cleft of the rock, and see my back. You can get a glimpse, but I can't show you everything, right? Because then domain. That's part and parcel of the relationship that we have with God, is I would say the word submission. Islam, by the way, means submission, and Islam is a very, very beautiful religion. I mean, I have a mosque. It's after sunset, so you can't see it. When I walk out of my house, I have a clear line to a mosque at 4 a.m. and you hear them at 5:30 a.m. and I it's kind of a mixed bag, because it's a reminder of a division that I think is for me, for Abraham, is sad. See that division between Muslims and Jews. So it's a sad reminder, very beautiful. It's very spiritual, and it's that's a different discussion. But when you ask about what I felt from all this, I felt clear that this was where I needed to vatal et hadat. I needed to say, okay, like shut off my rat, excuse me, and say, okay, this is God's domain. Like, just let him. Radical suggestion, because my whole life, Abraham's whole life, he was teaching about God's love for each and every one of, right? That's how I came to monotheism. I came to monotheism when I was old, right? Because I saw this 3 years old. I saw this phenomenal world. This, like, Rabbi Shmuel. My belief in God came from from eating an orange.
How's that happen?
Okay, I think you can all see this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I want to just focus for a second on, for Jewish people, we a series of brachot, of blessings, before and after consuming. And I just want to take a quick look at the blessing that we say after eating anything that doesn't grow from the ground, like meat or fish or eggs or water. It doesn't matter for us right now, but take a look at the text. We'll just Shmuel, do you want me to read it? Just the text of the upper part.
The bracha. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, borei nefashot robot. So, God, you are the source of all blessing. Our God, King of the universe, borei nefashot robot. You are the creator of many living things, entities, vechesronan, and you create their lackings. Al kol ma shebarata, and along with everything else that you've created, lahachayot bahem, that you cause there to be a living life force in them. Baruch Olamim, blessed are you, the giver of the life of the worlds. You are the life energy of the universes or the worlds.
That is a very beautiful translation. Better than the one there for sure. So I want to just focus on, I think you can see it, vechesronan. So we thank God for creating two things really. You create living things with what they lack. We have a lack. So that means that we need to turn to God and say, I need your help. I can't do this without you. Please take care. Please help me. And then, but we also mentioned al kol ma shebarata, thing you created. So let's look at just quickly at the commentary. So this is from the Talmud, and this is what he says. He explains who creating things with what they lack, right? That's the first, that's the fourth line in the text above. Many things with what they lack. So this refers to bread and water, which are essential for survival. And God, he's providing us the basics. And then, along with everything to provide life, there's this whole second thing. Refers to everything in the world, even non-essential foods, which are created purely for pleasure. For example, apples. So when I got my first orange when I was 3 years old, okay, I was astonished. I was astonished because for me that was the coolest thing I had ever seen. And,
Want to stop sharing? You want to stop sharing?
So when Abraham saw his first orange, he was totally amazed at the structure of this thing, because he just was fascinated by the color. But what he realized where he handled it was that just with his fingernail, it happened, so to speak, is he scraped the rind and released an orange perfume, essentially. And he was like, this is amazing. And he peeled it back, and he saw there was this whole water system to protect the fruit. And then he saw that he was not only able to enjoy the orange for himself. Took a bite. He realized that this orange came in section for sharing. And from that, Abraham understood that this is where the whole just share what you can. So, and then bit into one of these wedges, okay? And if you know an orange, it's got a there's 1,000 little capsules of this, orange juice, essentially. It's orange juice, right? That's what you got in there, naturally fresh squeeze, right? And it's an explosion of flavor and of pleasure. And Abraham was turned on by this, that he said, And similarly to what we saw in the Tosfot commentary, that Abraham said, wow, really must love me to have provided this for me. And that was the start of the journey.
Wow.
That was the start of the journey.
Reb Shraga.
And what happened, so in answer to the question is, so that's the short part, and then we want to fast forward to Akedah, and you asked me, was I afraid, was I surprised? No, I mean, it was like steeped in age 3. It was just, that was reality. I didn't, nothing, and never questioned it. That's not accurate. Not that he didn't question it, but that it never was called into question. Of Abraham, we see, is that when he was given the real test, the ultimate test, I mean, furnace was, that was easy compared to the Akedah. It's easier to, than to slaughter my own son, my beloved son. And that's why we chapter 22, verse 2, that God gives up the test. There's four Lashon phrases, there's 4 references, right? So take your son in verse 2. Let's go up a little bit to verse 2. Okay, so I'm going to read, and God said, take your son, that's 1. Okay, so God is giving it over to Abraham a measured way, it's a compassionate way, because he is very hard news. I mean, but he doesn't just, God parses it out, so to speak, over like 4 levels. So it's take your son, and then more specific is your favorite one, and the most specific is Isaac. Then God, this is how I read the verse, is acknowledges how beloved Isaac is to Abraham. I think passion there also. I don't know if I can say such a mind, at least, it's the metaphorical, warm hand on the shoulder after the person, gets told some bad news, right?
Right.
But it also is the test for Abraham, because it arouses and now, like, God really, is now focusing Abraham on how much he loves Isaac. And that's why the test is difficult. But Abraham never questions it. And on this, he's even compared, Abraham is, in this respect, Abraham is greater than even Moses. Moses had when Moses was told to do his big mission, his big mission, he questioned it. He was like, I don't know. I mean, about this, and this is the conversation at the burning bush. That's obviously a different discussion, but Abraham that's compared to Abraham had no, in the lashon of in the words of their sages, lo hir her acher midotai, that Abraham lo hir her, he literally did not have a thought, acher midotai. This is what God is testifying about Abraham. That he didn't have a thought against what I was asking him to do, which is an amazing thing. I was just for a moment, what's so amazing about Abraham's level of is that, if it was us and God came and said, okay, we want you to imagine the most difficult test you could imagine, and for Abraham, hugely difficult test, because for 2 reasons. One, that it was cutting off his future. The successor, the heir, the link in the chain would be broken. I mean, there would be no, 12 tribes. We wouldn't be probably having this conversation. I don't say it. I mean, it was obviously destiny, and God never intended for that, obviously. in Abraham's mind, like this is a huge thing. The question of we're still in the first three verses.
Yep.
So I want to look at verse 3. So early the next morning, Abraham saddled his donkey. Okay, that's all we need. Hebrew Vashkem Avram Baboker, V'yachbosh et Chamoro. That we would all highlight because that's what question. What did Abraham have to do? What did Abraham have to do to be ready for this? Like, what was his mood throughout this thing? That's what everybody wants to know. Abraham's mood, as this was happening. So God gave him the command. The truth is that if it's not. You also say the word please is in the verse. Again in verse 2. I mean, in Hebrew, that's not always translated, so you really have to see it in the original. Verse 2, the first three words, Ve'omer kach na. He said, kach na, take, and then the na is really please, right? So God, it was a command, but it was, God. It wasn't a harsh command. There was an element of it's almost self-understood within the land itself that God would understand if Abraham declined. Abraham did have the choice to decline. In his case, he was on such a level, it was so obvious to him that he was prepared for that. Like everything else was to that. It was like weightlifting, where you lift the first 150 pounds and 200 pounds. So Abraham had this process through the tests that Abraham had. The first one, which is being thrown into the furnace, saying was killing his own son, which is much more difficult. Because of yourself for the cause. When you're willing to be killed yourself for the cause, so like that's you can only do that once, as they say. But when killing your child for the cause, so that a person would live the rest with, right? Abraham had to be sure that this was the right thing, and to do what God said, even if it defied logic. Now, in the end, God, I don't know how to explain it other than, God says, not. Of course I wouldn't want you to kill Yitzchak. That would be terrible. I forgot to say before, the other reason besides Abraham having to, son, the other, very devastating aspect to Abraham should have been, and this is also part of the test, is his entire work was devoted to teaching humanity about God's love. And this does not sound like, a loving God thing. And see, if Abraham would have done it, and he was obviously willing to go ahead with it, but if Abraham would have done it, right, all his followers would have abandoned. I don't want to be part of a cult where they're sacrificing, they're going to, like, if he's going to sacrifice, what's he going to do next week? He's going to come for me. I don't want any part of that. That destroyed his entire life work, right? Which is totally around that God would ask him to do such a thing. And that, therefore, is the test. To do the irrational, because God says. Now, again, some people are thinking, I only need to have a little bit of rationality about something, faith in the rest. That's not what God wants, and that's how Abraham, his society in the first place, is he was unwilling to say, I'm just going to go along with society. We can take even a quick look, maybe. We didn't get to it, but the first three, just take a quick, we're not going to spend more than a half a minute on this, but you see that Abraham in 12:1, Perfect. In 12:1, as go forth from your native, God, the Lord said to Abraham, go forth from your native land and from your father's house, the land that I will show you. Now, we actually don't see it in the English. You have to look at it in Hebrew. Read it in Hebrew. V'yomer el Avram, lech lecha, me'artzecha, lech lecha, go. God is telling Abraham to go. Where? From three things. Me'art u'mimoladetaha, u'mibeit avicha. Okay, and then I'll show you. That's all Abraham knows at this point. But he's being told to go from those different levels, and there's this is a whole thing unto itself. But it was complete departure from Abraham on three levels, on kind of a more broader level. That's me'artzecha. That's me'artzecha on a broader societal level. Moladecha is really his own, more immediate community, his neighbor, his community. Beit Avicha, from his own father's house. This is what Abraham had to extract himself from. He had to become an independent thinker, right? He was worked out from a rational sense, from a rational standpoint. He had it very well worked out. But again, part and parcel of the monotheism is that you can't have it all figured out. You can't, right? So the binding of Isaac, this last test, was clearly something that defied Abraham's laws and made him the great test. Now, just the point we want to cover is what's the story with the donkey? What's the story with the donkey over here? He gets early morning and saddles his donkey. So we see from the fact that he got up early, verse 3. Right. So then early next morning, these are the words we want to, a few words in Hebrew. I'm going to read it. Ve'ashkem Avram baboker. So Abraham morning, ve'achavosh et chamoro, and he saddled his donkey. Okay, that was, so you see from the fact that he got up early in the morning, he had real alacrity, we call it zim makdim limitzvot, that he was, it was like, getting up, he was so excited. He was so excited. I mean, think of sad, everybody. I was like, that's where we don't get it, because, we're not, so what would happen if God asked us to do such a thing? And I'm not minimizing, that, but to appreciate the level that Abraham was at, that he was literally happy. Like, he bounded out of bed in the morning. He's okay. And he saddled his donkey, which means two things. First, that he did it himself. He didn't have any, he had servants, as we see, but he wanted that mitzvah, that good deed. He wanted help, because there's a concept, which is a Talmudic concept, which is called mitzvah boter mibeshlucho, that a doing a mitzvah, right? It's better to do it oneself than to someone else do it. So this was because, you're personally involved, and Abraham's, this is part of it. I mean, if God came to you and told you you're going to, I got this, you've got to, tomorrow you're going to storm into the Sunday, and it's going to be, they're going to be talking about 1,000 now. Okay. Now that obviously wasn't Abraham's motivation, but something of that, historic importance that get up to do. So of course he's going to do. He's ready to go. He's ready to go. How did he do that? Achieve that? We're talking about? Oh, Abraham, he was an incredible servant of God, but we haven't spoken about how he got there. What was his hard work? Because he wasn't born this way. Yes, he had an into nature that God has given us, created this world for, as this gift, as an enormous gift, and the sages tell us that we're obligated to every bit of it. appropriately. But Abraham realized that there's something beyond that, right? And how he did that was his ability. This is the whole thing. This is how Abraham did it. It was his ability to distinguish, to separate himself from, does anyone want to fill in the blank? From his own body, to separate himself from his own body, okay? The body is physical matter. It's matter of this world, and it has its own, way of doing things. It likes to sleep, it likes to eat, and it likes to, likes to fun. It likes to be outdoors. So all of that needs to be, and the human being comprised of both soul needs to be on top of that, right? Not carried away, unbridled, right? Think of a horse think of a rider, and you don't want the horse unbridled. You want the horse, trained, and respected. And that's the great, in Hebrew, look at the word that Rabbi Shmuel is circling, is Yevachbosh, and he saddled at what? Chomro. That it's, thank you, that it's, anyway, that it's, we're looking at Chomro, Shmuel, at Chomro, that's what we're looking for. So he saddled his donkey. So that is the word, mare. That is the word. We're waiting for here we go. We're going to get a green one, everybody. Yeah, thank you. So the green word that's the word for chamor, which is donkey. It's also the word for homer, which is material, physical matter. And that, by the way, goes back to Adam naming all the that he named them by what like their function is. So the function of a donkey, schlep stuff, physical, heavy. That's what donkeys do. So they're associated with homer, which is physical, which is the body, which is what Abraham saddled, was master of, and tamed, and his, physical side, which is, follow this carefully, in the binary system, it's a choice of zero unless it's for the sake of, it's genuine serving God. So of course we need to sleep, and we need to eat, well, and we need to exercise and take care of the body. But Abraham's genius, his brilliance, was the ability to the physical world and elevate it in service of God. And I almost want to conclude with this, is that this is, I believe personally, that this is him's great contribution, because he didn't invent monotheism. That goes back to the tradition, to Adam. That's what we have. But his ability to understand the physical world in service of a higher purpose, and that we don't need to flee from the physical world, disdain the physical world, and we don't need to hide from the physical world, pretend it doesn't exist, and that's, some kind of necessary evil. And Abraham saw this through the orange. God wanted us to enjoy this world. It's here for us. Like, what do you think he did? He perfumed the orange. Who did he do that for? Right? So that's the blessing that we say. That's what we thank God for. Is then we know he loves us. And if God says to do something, so he knows what's best for me. Like, I don't know. So we need to keep ourselves, to the degree we can keep ourselves out of the picture. So our fears and there's a lot to talk about with that, but our fears and our doubts, that all comes from our insecurities and, our need to be loved and to feel accepted and to be connected, and all that's valid, and that's all part of the picture. But Abraham, it allows us, the study of Abraham allows us to do, is to take it back to really, not to the beginning, not to Adam, but to the beginning of probably the most, consequential point history, where Abraham says, okay, this is the monotheistic tradition I am, that I have and I'm sharing with the world. And that's what we're talking about today, that we have, and that's the great diversion. I mean, you kind of in or out on that, and exciting. That's why I was so grateful for inviting me today, because the ability to have that conversation and to speak about that, and I mean, I gosh, forward in life, without that. I mean, it's just, God, having a connection, having a relationship provide us with all the answers, but it's not it doesn't provide us all the answers, but it does provide us with a lot. It does provide us with a lot of things, because we can see that it's the narcissism, the chaos. Because when you take two narcissists and you put them in close proximity, they bang into each other. They want to kill each other. And so we need to know who's running the world. And I unfortunately don't believe that God is running the world. They rather think Kochi ve'otzem yadi, and this was the whole problem that Abraham saw at the Tower of Babel, is that people were saying, we're going to take control of this situation. We had a problem. They were living in the aftermath of the Great Flood, and they wanted to apply to try to spare things. So they built this. They went to the place of Shinar, where it was the most high tech, where they had this brick technology, and they said, let's take these bricks now, let's build a tower. And what to do was create a stabilization, pillar for the world, so that it was an anti-flood device of some kind. The heavens had opened up, and there was this deluge, and they wanted to remember that this was their high-tech method to do.
Wow.
So it was all about taking God out of the picture, and it was all about saying that's who has the power. And that's in society, that's what we should is the narcissism, and in our own lives we should be trying to focus on saddling the donkey.
Wow.
Just being aware that we're not getting away with the physical material pleasures, the many physical material smells and the tastes and the sights and the textures and everything that's so wonderful of the physical material world. But that is not the be all end all. And once we get that clear, then a lot of things change in our life.
But the other thing I want to do is, I noticed when you were speaking that, Noach and Avraham had the same mission, and they were around at the same time, and they overlapped with this Tower of Babel. And Noach failed. He was preaching water and brimstone. He was preaching flood. You guys don't shape up, you're going to get punished. And he failed. He didn't attract anybody. I know people with my teaching, I can be a little bit tough and a little bit fiery. And I often been told you attract more flies with honey or bees with honey than, so that's what Avraham was. Avraham was attracting the people with honey, with oranges. And that's what they say, HaNefesh Asu B'Charan. When he came into the land, he brought the Nefesh Asu B'Charan, the souls that they had made in Haran, in his starting out country, in Haran. And our commentaries tell us, what does that mean? That means he and Sarah brought the pagans under the umbrella of monotheism with them. And how did they do it? He did it with honey. He did it with oranges instead of threats of fire and brimstone. So I want to really thank you, Reb Shraga. You can get in touch with him, as we said. I really apologize we didn't cover that much material, but we knew we weren't going to be able to. I have all of your questions recorded. Somehow we're going to try to get through them. We may have another thing about another series on some topics now that we got a little bit of a better feel. And sorry, don't have time for question and answers verbally now, but send them in to me at shmuel@galileegreen.com. And thank you so much for being so patient and joining us. And I'll turn you all, here we go. There's still a whole bunch of people here. Look at you all. All right, thank you everyone so much for joining us. And my bracha, my blessing for you all is that you have all the sweet blessings that Reb Shraga was talking about, all of the beautiful physical bounty and blessings, and learn how to use them as tools to bring you closer to the Almighty, because that's what we're all here for. So have a great rest of your week, and see you all soon.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.